Good morning, and you're here with Shannen of Cascade Pet Camp.
And I'm Dana with Cascade Pet Camp.
And today we're going to talk about defining terms of behavior.
Yeah. We find that we talk a lot in dog speak because it's what we love and we're kind of nerds about it. And then we realize that people don't always know what we mean when we use certain words in the dog world. So the first term we want to talk about is arousal, or often called over-arousal or hyper-arousal. So what do you think of, Shannen, when we talk about a dog that is in an over-aroused or hyper-aroused state?
There's a spectrum for sure, but there's a couple different extremes. I think of the doodle that cannot walk on all 4 feet and is dragging its owner to everybody, and overstimulated, over happy.
And that's a key, I think, can be a key thing. The often this presents as a very happy, outgoing, excited dog. They really want to meet everybody. Everybody's their friend.
And sometimes I look at those dogs, however, though, and think they are not quite in the right state of mind.
Oh, 100%. I think if you're
happy does not mean confident, settled, and in a good state of mind.
Yeah, think of the 8-year-old girl who's crying in tears at the NSYNC concert. Yes, I just dated myself. At the Swift concert, Taylor Swift concert. The flip side of that is we need some level of arousal or engagement in order to train. So if your dog's sleeping on the couch, they have a very low level of arousal and are probably not going to be in a great state of mind to train either. So we're looking for that sweet spot for working with our dogs.
The other picture I see is a dog with their hackles up, tail down, overwhelmed, growling, on the other extreme. Lunging, barking.
And would you consider that arousal, or would you consider that something different? So where does arousal tip over into being reactive?
Excellent question. Interesting question.
Because I would think there's, like, the way I sort of look at it is there's almost this continuum of, if your dog is sleeping, they're obviously low arousal. If they're dancing on all 4 or on their hind legs and, you know, they're harnessed and ready to meet somebody, they're excited but over aroused. And at some point that can tip over into reactivity. Even if they're generally happy, they get to a point where they can no longer contain all that emotion in their body and they start responding in a really negative way to the environment. So I sort of look at it as reactivity can be a tip over from an aroused state into that I'm a little bit unconfident or fearful, and now I need to figure out a way to get space for myself from whatever is out in the environment. And we do see that from dogs, again, not to throw the doodles under the bus, but retrieving breeds. They're often very social, but we're seeing more and more that many of them actually have some social anxiety, and so they're actually bouncing off people to get space from people. They don't actually want to say hello to everybody, but they're so generally soft and happy that it comes out as over sociability instead of a little bit of anxiety. Does that sort of jive with what you think, or do you have a different perspective?
No, absolutely. I still think that's a really tough brain space to train, just like a dog who's scared and reactive and growling and being much more clear with their communication.
And then how often do you think dogs are truly what we used to label aggressive?
Rarely. I mean, I think most of us in training, behavior, veterinary medicine, all of those, rarely are there dogs that are truly confident and socially aggressive.
And I think that's a super important point to call out for people. When people in the dog industry talk about dog aggression, it is often actually from a position that the dog is actually very confident and knows exactly what it wants to do. And it is not from a fear space. We talk about fear-based aggression.
Excuse me. Sorry.
We talk about fear-based aggression as a separate subset of aggression, but that fear-based is a important thing to call out of that, because truly human aggressive or dog aggressive dogs are actually pretty rare in life. Usually it is some sort of behavioral instability that causes a dog to bite, and they don't actually intend to harm somebody. They intend to create space from themselves and whatever's causing the fear. And that's the way they know how to do that. They can't ask you politely to move away because they're an introvert and don't really want you in their space.
Well, and let's face it, most humans aren't very good at reading any animals very well because we're such a verbal species, and they are not.
Well, and it happens so fast. I just had an incident last night with my parents where my dogs, who, if anybody doesn't know, I have 2 Swedish Valhund dogs, which are very loud player dogs. They sound really bad if you take a recording of them, but they are just playing. And my dad was wondering, when does that tip over? And what does their body language mean?
When there's blood, finally. Just kidding.
But it's very interesting if you try and narrate real time for somebody who doesn't know how quickly something changes. And so there was an incident where one of the dogs had enough, and she gave 3 very different vocalizations, and the other dog submitted. So she submitted, and it was over. But it was all within the matter of probably less than 5 seconds. And so it changes really quickly. And if you're not looking for it, that can be an opportunity lost in a training setting. We were just talking before the cameras turned on about how trainers that we admire often say, the time to redirect was 3 seconds ago. Mm-hmm. So how do you use that in training? What different kinds of things would you do with a dog that is maybe slightly over threshold or over aroused versus a dog that's reactive? Would you treat it the same way?
I wouldn't treat it the same way, but I would, space and focus and redirecting and getting your dog. We talk a lot in group classes that sometimes your dogs need speed and space. Mm-hmm. So overall, whether you're teaching a puppy or we're in a reactive dog class, or it's getting your dog to do something else to get their brain in a different state of mind. So whether it's a physical activity or mental activity, usually they go hand in hand, and reward and being quicker as a handler. We're always learning and always evolving, for sure. But essentially, you can't be on the end of the leash and have your dog reacting in that way, practicing that state of mind without changing something. So usually it's have your dog get up on something, have your dog look a different way, get your dog distracted, start walking faster, or, depending on the dog, stop and get them to focus, because sometimes movement helps, sometimes it doesn't.
And that's, I think, an important thing for all of us to remember. And if you've raised more than one dog, you're going to try what worked with the first dog, with the second dog, and you might be lucky and it works. And you might not get lucky and you might need to try something new. And, I have found with my current puppy in my home that actually if he's feeling big feelings, that slowing him down and getting him into a body position that's a little bit more calming. So I lie him down, not forcefully, but I
put him in
I
a
lure
jacket.
him. Sometimes I'd like to. No, just kidding. I lure him into a down, and he gets rewarded for staying in that calmer body position. And then we move again when he's a little bit more relaxed. And I notice that if I get up too soon, he starts surging ahead again. So I put him back in that lie down position and just wait a little bit. And at some point, he is able to focus a little bit more. But I have another dog that I need to move away quickly because he's not going to be able to maintain that same body position. So you have to try different things. But I thought it was important for us to kind of give people a background on what we think is the difference between maybe a dog that is in an arousal state from sleeping to over the top versus a reactive state versus maybe aggression. And I think we're going to do another video on then how do we deal with dogs that are being reactive all the way to dogs that might be aggressive.
Thanks. If you want to learn more, if we can help you out personally, you can reach us out to us at cascadepetcamp.com via email or check us out on social media. Thanks.